All right, back on the Young Turks. Now we're going to go to the discussion of joblessness. Is it a perpetual problem? And I want to talk about finance a little bit more generally as well. We're going to bring on Rana Foroohar from Newsweek to join us again here on the Young Turks. Rana, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you coming on. First, let's talk about the state of joblessness. It's at 10%, and we're celebrating because it went down by 0.2%. Let me put it this way. Is there anything that can actually be done by the government to lower jobs, or that's just the state of the economy and there ain't much we could do about it?
Well, I think there are some things that can be done. Unfortunately, they would be very difficult. I really think that the only thing that's going to jumpstart job creation in this country longer term is some kind of major government stimulus program, probably around green technology or some sort of major growth area like that. But politically, it's very, very difficult, and there are powerful global forces that are continuing to work against job creation and wage increases in the U.S. So we're sort of fighting against the tide.
That's interesting. Who's fighting against job growth and wage increases?
Well, it's not that people are actively fighting against it. It's just these forces of globalization. So technological improvements, which increase productivity, mean that fewer people can do the same amount of work. The growth in emerging markets like China and Brazil, which understandably want to grow their middle class, want to increase opportunities for their own citizens. They're able to do jobs that are higher up the food chain now. So there was a McKinsey study that came out recently that found that 71% of Americans now hold jobs for which there is decreasing demand or increasing supply, or both. And that's largely a result of these forces that I was talking about.
Okay, I understand. Now, I understand that we gave the banks a lot of money to spur loans, then goes to small businesses, that goes to create jobs. Did that trickle-down economics not really work?
Yeah, I think trickle-down is definitely in question at this stage. It has not trickled down is the answer. And in fact, that's one of the key reasons that there hasn't been more job creation. Small businesses, which create two-thirds of jobs, as most of us know, are really suffering. They depend on about 90% of their financing comes from banks. And the number of loans being given to small businesses are way down, needless to say, from last year, and they haven't been coming back up.
You know, I want to run a theory by you, and I haven't read this anywhere, and I don't know if you know how much expertise you're going to have on it, but I want to give it a shot. You know, they have $1.1 trillion in reserves now. It's the highest number in literally recorded history over the last 50 years for all the banks, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not that they don't have the money, it's that they're not giving it out. So what are they keeping the money for? And I want to ask you that in general, but also specifically, is it possible that they're keeping it because they need more money to be able to play with in the derivatives market? So if they have, let's say on an individual basis in a bank, they have $1 billion, well then they can bet $10 billion in derivatives, because now there's a slightly more stringent requirements on how much cash they have to have on hand.
Well, I think unfortunately that there's probably some truth in that theory. In fact, there's a Nobel-winning economist at Columbia, Edmund Phelps, who studies this very question, and I spoke to him recently, and he told me that he felt that the financial world and the real economy were more disconnected than they had ever been in 200 years, basically in the history of modern economies, and that banks were, in fact, investing more in the virtual sphere, if you will, in themselves, in complex derivatives, and less in real businesses. And this is a huge problem, and it's got to be fixed in order to get growth back on track.
Well, you know how I know that is because the derivatives market now, by all accounts, is up to $600 trillion in value, whereas the entire world economy, GDP, is only $60 trillion.
Yeah, those are scary figures.
Obviously they're gambling, right, Rana?
The banks are continuing to work in the derivatives space, definitely. As a matter of fact, there are a number of liberal economists that are very concerned about the derivatives bill that's working its way through Congress at the moment. They feel that it's a bit of a leaky sieve, and it's not going far enough to stop some of these loopholes that are allowing risky behaviors on the part of banks. So, yeah, it is a concern.
Well, I'll go further than that. And we're talking to Rana Foroohar from Newsweek. She wrote, "Joblessness is here to stay," which is, of course, unfortunate. And we're talking about some of the root causes of that. Now, we have the regulation pushed by the Obama administration, which is, hey, let's not ban credit default swaps as an example, some of the more egregious examples. What Warren Buffett calls financial weapons of mass destruction. George Soros says they should be outright banned. Volcker says they should at the very least be regulated. So we're not going to ban them. We're not even going to regulate them, but we're going to record some of them. But then when we go to record some of them, we're not going to include the foreign currency swaps, which is a $50 trillion market or $50 trillion loophole. And we're not going to put the end users, we're not going to have them recorded either. So then that leaves about 10% of derivatives. Is this change we can believe in, Rana?
Well, I think the jury is very much out on that. I am personally concerned that there hasn't been enough regulation in the derivative space, and in particular the over-the-counter derivative area. Frankly, I think that this is a concern amongst people in finance themselves. I deal with a lot of hedge fund managers and folks on all ends of the political spectrum, and I think that many of them have concerns about this because you don't know who's holding the bag in this kind of situation.
Yeah, well, I have a friend who works at one of the top hedge funds, and, informally he says they're smoking crack. And not his hedge fund, they're not involved in that, but the government that is not regulating any of this stuff. It's madness. And every once in a while I think, am I the only one? But then you see Volcker and you see some of the top financial minds in the world. You see Stiglitz, you see Bill Black. And the only person who apparently doesn't get it, or the only people that don't get it, Barack Obama, Tim Geithner, Larry Summers, and the guy they just reappointed to the Fed, well, he hasn't gotten past the Senate yet, but Ben Bernanke, which your competitor Time Magazine now comically just named Man of the Year.
Right. We'll hope that's comic. I think you have to look at the team that's in place now, and it is problematic because Summers in particular was part of the Clinton team that presided over some of the legislation that has now become problematic during the financial crisis, and so it's tricky. It's tricky how this team is going to re-regulate, and I think it's an ongoing issue.
Yeah. So Ben Bernanke, is he going to make it through the Fed? And I know I'm going a little outside of your article here, but Time Magazine thinks he's God's gift to mankind, but he's the guy who crashed the ship. I mean, he was in charge of the Fed when it ran straight into the iceberg, and he says, "Whoa, I didn't see that iceberg coming." Well, then I would think you should be fired, shouldn't you?
Yeah, I think that you were speaking before about why does nobody else get this? Why is there not more outrage? Why are people not talking more about this? I think part of the problem is that these topics are so complex that they're really very difficult, even for people in the financial community, to understand. And I think to communicate them in the media in such a way that people get it and get outraged is really, really tough. I happen to think that one reason why the pay issue and the issue of big bonuses and windfall taxes on bonuses get so much so much attention is not because it's the crucial issue, but because it's the easiest to explain. So that's something that perhaps we could all be doing a better job with.
Well, I hear you on that. Again, I don't want to go back to Time. That was one of the worst.
Yeah, quit giving them so much press.
No. Well, if they like this kind of press, it was one of the worst articles I've ever seen. Okay, that's what I thought. I mean, they're in the myth-making business. They're supposed to tell us what the reality is, not to puff up people in power. But let me get back to your article and what we were discussing earlier. And we're talking to Rana Foroohar from Newsweek. You say maybe in the next round Obama could create more green jobs. Maybe that's a way to add jobs. Why not in the first round? What's stopping us?
I think it's just politically very, very difficult to get support for a lot more spending right now for, I think, obvious reasons. I mean, debt levels are at record highs, not just in the U.S., but in most rich countries. Britain is actually even in worse shape than we are in this sense. So it's tough. But that said, it's going to be tougher in terms of the cut in tax revenues that are coming in if unemployment stays as high as many people think it will in the next 5 years.
So now I have another friend who works as a lawyer at doing some of these high-end deals, and he says they're actually giving a lot of money to alternative energy, and that it's given away in his estimation a little bit sloppy way. He's not sure we're going to get a great return on that. But putting aside his criticism, is that happening though? Is that part of the stimulus?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure where your friend's investing, but I think this goes to the point of the disconnect between the fate and the success of American companies and the fate and success of labor. Now, there is a lot of venture capital money and a fair bit of government money going into a lot of new green technologies. But are those companies that are behind them, are they going to be creating jobs here, or will they be creating jobs in, say, China or Germany or Brazil? Just to make a sort of tangential point, the Fortune 500 in this country are actually in pretty good shape, but they get 60% of their revenue from abroad, and they can move jobs wherever they would like, and the same would go for any number of green startups. So it may be that there's a lot of investment. Will we feel that effect and that success at home? I'm not sure.
Ron, a final question for you, and this is a tough one. We've had a congressman on the show. We asked them; they have trouble with it. If we can't give it to the Fortune 500 companies because they're going to take it to China and India possibly, or Brazil or wherever else, and yeah, we can do construction jobs. That's easy, right? And teachers and cops, right? Basically. But once we go outside of those realms, what can we do? How do we create jobs here in the U.S.? Does anybody have an answer to that?
I think there is a very clear answer. It's not a simple one, but it's focus strongly on primary and secondary education in this country. We have a fantastic university system, but we don't have enough people that are coming up through the ranks that are getting a strong enough education to take advantage of it. And by the way, our universities are going to be under pressure to accept more foreign students paying full tuition because their endowments have been hit by the financial crisis. So we need to make sure that we're developing a high-level competitive workforce here at home, and that means a long-term focus on quality education.
Rana Foroohar from Newsweek, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate the conversation.